calling from Los Angeles, and I'm having a little problem under the name That Umbrella Guy. I sent him my phone number at least 20 times in the chat and told him to call me. He ignored me. I'm a man. I filed the report. If you guys could take a look at it and give me a call back, I would love to hear what you guys can do to help us. We really need to kind of stop this guy at least until Monday. I told him to call me. I'm a man.
All right, how's it going today? Man, it took me a minute to get in here. You notice every time you want to go live or something, a bunch of crap wants to update. Today, yesterday, I got knocked offline in the middle of a broadcast. Today, I got to update freaking voice mod and everything else. Oh, man. But today should be pretty interesting. We are going to go over, Rekieta Law had his first interview. I mean, a real interview talking about what happened with arrests and more. So he did this with Ethan Ralph last night. Now, I actually didn't think the interview was going to happen last night, because there were so many problems. And Rumble is absolute trash most of the time. And what I mean by that is, Rumble had so many problems that when I went back and went to watch it, I thought half of the broadcast wasn't there because of problems. But this morning I downloaded, I'd recorded everything, and there was more there than I actually thought. So I ended up pulling, I think it's about an hour and 10 minutes of interview. And it's not bad. So we're going to go through it. We're going to listen to it. It's actually not a... It answers a lot of stuff that should have been. This is... If you're going to do a live stream and talk about this stuff at all, this is what should have happened from go. Now, I'm not... having said that, I went through about 30 minutes of it. There's 30 minutes left, so we'll see what the last 30 minutes, but the way it carried off, it was, I was more surprised that, with the interview, I thought it might be a train wreck, but we'll see. You can look at it, like I said. Let me say, by the way, before we get started, AJ Stone, thank you for those 10 gifted memberships. Appreciate it. Romer, what's up, man? Hello, my friends and enemies in the chat. Hope you're well, Tug. Still fighting through pain, but still alive, keeping it going. Well, man, love with you. Glad you're still going, brother. Fallen Hero, thanks for the gifted membership there. Appreciate that. 5 of these. Cat, thanks for the 24 months. Happy 4th of July, fam. Yes, happy 4th of July to everybody, by the way. Oh, it has definitely been a lazy holiday here so far. Okay, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for the membership. Welcome to Tugs Thugs. All right, let's pull this up. And yeah, this should be pretty, should be pretty good. This should. Interestingly, I didn't realize that Dropbox will add subtitles too, which I don't know if that adds positive to it or not. But now, this has terrible internet. Not the broadcast here. This has terrible internet. So the picture wise and stuff, it will clear up after a while spots, but the interview itself, like I said, I went back, I tried to watch this real time while it was going on. And Rumble, like I said, Rumble is awful about this. I tried to go back to the beginning because I'd missed the beginning, and I thought there was no beginning. You know, there was a lot of audio issues and everything else, but it got cleared up, but you couldn't tell from Rumble. So I'm glad I actually recorded the thing and went back to it, because otherwise, I don't know. I don't know how playback is on it or whatever. You know, it went live at, it also went live at 4 or 5. I can't remember if it went live at 5 their time or 5 my time. So it was either 4 or 5. And the interview didn't happen for hours too. So anyway, let's check this out. By the way, like the channel, you know that drill too. Support, all that good stuff. Here we go.
You know, I had a call back to a certain point in time, and not meant as a dig, but you know, what the hell were you thinking, basically, with all this?
Now you got delays. Like there's a long delay between when he asks a question and when it gets answered. You'll think there's something wrong, it's not going to get answered, but it will get answered. Okay, everything does. There's a significant delay. Like you get a terrible connection.
With all this, man, I don't know. I was thinking I'm living life, doing a whole bunch of fucking life. And then, this past month has been not the most fun part of it. But what was I thinking? Tough question. Because you're never ready. You're never ready for the government to come down on you. Like you're just never ready for that shit. So it's like one day, seriously, you're just life is normal, and then the next day you got a fucking sheriff's department in your house.
Now, and of course, you know, there's certain things we can and cannot talk about, and obviously, what has been the impact on you personally?
That's not chopped, by the way. I didn't chop anything. That is exactly how this is. So, you know, if you're like, well, did that question get chopped off or anything like that? No, that's exactly how it is.
And I assume this, you don't have to confirm it or not, but from the separation of your children.
Yeah, that's that's the biggest impact, because whatever people think on the internet. I mean, my kids are the fucking most important part of my life. They're what drives literally every day. They're who I drive literally every day, and not having them around it's.
I read when if I laugh. By the way, I'm reading the comments. You know, people are like, "What the quality on this?" I mean, again, this is exactly how the broadcast is, and the quality of download. Man, you can actually see the marker at the bottom at 720p that it was captured in. Yeah, but it was rough there. It was rough. It's still, like I said, you can. I think the audio went through
devastating.
Well,
it's a piece of you that's pulled away, and that's it's something I wouldn't wish on anyone. And I think you may remember, like back when we were in the thick of kind of really taking nasty jabs at each other.
Sure.
I think I sent you a message and just said, "Hey, man, all the internet bullshit aside, family's family, and I hope things work out where everybody's safe." So I know you know all about it, but like when your kids get when you don't.
when you're separated from your children, I will say, especially you. You know, I have 2 kids. I think you have 5. It's a mental torture, basically, to go through that. Correct? I mean, I'm asking you, but like.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're asking, but like it is. Like I said, it's my kids are a piece of me, in a very real way. Like when I see them, I tell them like everything's different. Different kids have I have different interactions with each one, and you feel it. My my oldest daughter, like, she's hilarious. She's very sarcastic and snarky like I am. And so like, it's weird not like walking into a room and having her remind me that my nose got there 10 minutes earlier. Like, it sounds silly, but it's those little fucking things that, when those are gone, that's the spice, man. And it's not there. It's empty.
See, this kind of stuff would have been your best. Like I realize that opening salvo. You know, we were talking to the internet itself about what's going on. But man, I mean, like an interview like this, and again, people are asking, "Hey, the other guy, is he trashed?" Well, he says he's not. So I mean, you know, you take it how you want. He's he's saying he's not trash, but I think opening with the kid stuff, even with him, I'm going to say having his difficulties there. Let's just go with that. Trash, not trashed again. You decide on that. But even with that, a lot of stuff comes up that, yeah. I mean, if you were gonna talk about this at all, this would have been, God, weeks ago. You know, if we know that a lawyer will tell you not to talk about anything at all, but that has not been the advice that was taken. So if you were going to talk about things, this should have been the way to go. That's what I mean with it. Let's continue that.
And so, you know, we'll talk about a lot of things, but like, I feel like, first off, let me ask you this. You know, a lot of people have said that you know, you were
just my word at present. When I actually can like show people documentation, I will.
It jumped. Now for that, like, that is how the broadcast, I went back and checked too. This is how the broadcast shows right now too. So again, I think Ethan, if I'm not mistaken, Ethan Ralph is in what, Mexico? So, you know, he's having some problems there. So we may miss some stuff. But like I said, we get a lot of, we get answers, and you can tell what the questions are if they phase out.
But the allegations of abuse and neglect were actually screened out by Child Protective Services. They're not part of any current allegations against us. None of them were ever.
Okay, so this is something we talked about yesterday. This actually got dropped into the public yesterday. There was a document that mentioned multiple CPS involvements. Now, for me, you know, a couple of people asked whether or not CPS like, if there's a report, does that pop up on a court record? And I didn't know the answer to that. Why? Because typically you don't see the CPS involvements on court documentation. The only way that the person that got those actually got them is they went to the police station and they got copies themselves. They weren't available when people went online, they look up cases. So you never see the CPS involvement, period. So this is actually yesterday I said if they did have their interview, I didn't know if it was going to happen or not. But if they did have their interview, this would be something that you would want to, I would think, discuss for sure. And sure enough, it does come up. So you didn't hear the question on that, but it related to that documentation that ended up publicly yesterday. There was a CPS thing that popped up from 2009. And there were a couple of other, again, I don't remember the exact number. And then there were the things that are involved in this specific case. So, it went everywhere. It was all over the internet yesterday. People talking about this stuff also, by the way, just got picked up. I can't remember the name of the outlets, but on Twitter, how you have quote unquote news organizations, places that basically they find headlines, usually on the day, and they kick them out from some other place. They condense them into like just 180 characters or less. Well, for some reason, they went out and they brought up the kid thing, which is not a new item. They didn't bring up the CPS stuff from that last document, but it's starting this into a trending cycle again.
Or substantiated or even investigated. Those the two reports, the one from February and the one from May, were both ignored by Child Protective Services because there wasn't sufficient evidence to proceed with anything. And further, even in the light of all of this, they found no basis for any of that. Everything involving my children not being in my house right now has to do with the with the search warrant that was executed on my house. That's the sole basis. There are no allegations of neglect or abuse or anything like that. So, yeah. But I mean, everybody, unfortunately, the way these things work, everybody has to just kind of don't.
There are allegations of neglect, but the neglect comes from the arrest. The neglect is part of the arrest. Now, there will be more discussion over that, but yeah, there are allegations of neglect, but the neglect that they charge on is the arrest because, again, conditions. They do an emergency order in really quite a few arrests. There are quite a few different things where they'll come in, they'll hold the kids. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to remove them into state's custody, meaning they take them into foster care. In this case, they put them with family, which again, more of that gets discussed. But yeah, you have an emergency injunction for the kids right away. They operate. They say, "Hey, this looks like it could be a danger to the kid. We have to evaluate and we have to decide." And then after that, there were documents that were leaked about the emergency injunction, and things that came after that. So,
well, don't take my word on it. I'll say it, but eventually I'll show you. I just can't yet.
Right. Well, of course, and people may not understand fully. Like when you're, they're trying to put you in jail, basically, right? Like, what I mean? Like they have you, indictments and all this stuff, and so you have to be careful with what you say. I am unfortunately very familiar with that, and so what has it been like for you personally to deal with this?
I mean, it's
what a delay.
The frustrating part is the pace, because you're stuck at government's pace. You get things that are presented to you that you need to deal with or do or take care of, but you can't actually do them. You have to wait for a hearing. You have to wait for whatever the next meeting with a government person is. And all the while you have to just sit there. You can't say anything. You can't do anything because anything.
Those dings, by the way, that is not on my side either. Just note that those are people trying to get into the call. Okay, so I'm just making that clear too. At some points during this, I don't know if it was during the super chat portion, like after Rekieta's gone, but there was some portion it's like ding, 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 ding. It just keeps going with it. So, if you hear that, that is not something on my side. That is quite literally part of this.
You say can and will be used against you. I'm sure there's a bunch of people who are going to freak out about what I've said so far, even though the government already knows everything that I've said. That's the funniest part.
Right.
Everything I've said, the government already knows. So I'm not really worried about it in that respect. But it's like, look, man, I want my kids back in the house. I know they belong back here. And so we're working towards making that happen as fast as possible. There's a bunch of misinformation that comes up because the public doesn't have access to everything. Mainly because there are laws and that involves children, and so they don't get access to everything, and that's the way that goes. But like for example, people say like I'm not submitting to drug tests or whatever, which is completely false.
Right.
I'm 100% compliant with everything that the government's asked me to do in regards to child custody stuff. As for the criminal case that's going on. We just don't have anything to do in the criminal case until our next hearing is the 21st. And so I just have to wait next month. So I work with my lawyer and we figure out what to do ahead of that hearing, but that's a ways out.
And and again,
in the meanwhile, you try and just figure out what the fuck life is between constantly thinking about this pending legal issue and also, still trying to, live.
Fucking up. Okay, so it seems like we're back on. I'm recording.
It's
this
really bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. Yeah. Sorry, I had to run away from the hurricane in the Yucatan. So I'm in Mexico City right now. And you can confirm or deny or whatever. Your kids have been taken from you, though, correct?
My kids are taken from me. My kids are on a what's called an emergency placement. It's related to their parents were arrested, and the kids have to go somewhere. Thankfully, we have significant amounts of family close by, and they were able to they're able to house our children in the meanwhile. So our kids are with family. But they're not at home, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I've seen some speculation out there that they went with strangers or something like that. No, that's not true. They're with family and we get to see them. It just has to be, there are rules around seeing them.
So they have.
Yeah, typically the state is going to do some type of supervised visitation, until you clear that up. I mean, that again, this stuff is typical, and it's supposed to be, it's for the child, but I'm glad to hear, and I'm glad confirmation has come up. We saw it in the reports itself that it mentioned that the kids were with grandparents, and that's good, man. I do not want anyone's kids, I don't give a shit what you think about anyone and anything. You do not, unless it's an extreme case, you do not want them in a foster care system, because the amount of kids that end up abused in those kinds of systems, it's overwhelming. I've seen plenty of children that have been taken from a home for something, and it made thousands of times worse because of abuse, because of SA. I mean, there's so many horrible things that happens to kids in that. So them being able to stay with family, them being able to be put in an environment, and obviously they're monitored with that too. DHS, I'll say CPS, but it's DHS. DHS, they heavily supervise that as well. They make sure, again, they default to the safety of the children, and that's what should happen. I'm sure even, as much as anybody, like even with Rekieta, I would be sure that, you would want somebody to default on the safety of your kids. Making sure that, and you wouldn't want them involved in your life, period. But if they're involved in your kid's life, defaulting to safety, that should be the prime thing there.
Have not been taken by the state, is what you're saying.
I mean, they've been placed into a temporary placement with family. So in that respect,
with your own family, with your own relations, though, right? Like not like just random.
Yeah. And to be clear, our children are like, how do I analogize this? Our children are like in a pre-trial probation. We haven't even had our trial on child custody. It's what's called an emergency placement. The determination is that an emergency existed within the home that was determined by the allegations from the execution of the search warrant, right? The search warrant execution, as the internet well knows, alleges that a substance was removed from my home.
Sure.
And so in light of that, there's an emergency placement that occurs until the county or the state is able to adjudicate whether the children are in need of ongoing services. That hasn't happened yet. We haven't gone to trial on it. So right now it's like I said, it's like a pretrial probation to analogize it to a criminal case.
So, and again, you can get into this or not. Do you think that that's being used against you, like in one manner? Like, of course, you want your children back in your home, and you have 5 kids, and I'm reading this, and I don't know the full aspect, and it's like, wow, are they talking about separating?
Let me address something.
Kids?
Hold on, let me address something real quick.
Sure.
Real quick, the chat, some people in the chat are misunderstanding what I'm saying. The pretrial probation is us as the parents, and the children are in temporary placement. I'm not blaming the children. Anyone who thinks that I said I was blaming the children is retarded. I'm saying that there was an emergency placement determination made, and that's akin to a pretrial probation. The actual trial on whether or not the children are in need of protective services happens later. But the way the state operates is that in the interest of the child, they defer to the side of safety, right? And so they presume that an unsafe condition existed because of the search warrant's execution. Once we go to trial, they'll make a determination if the children need to be placed into foster care or returned back to us, or if they need to, go for like a temporary time. The state wants to move forward even farther. That all happens later. That hasn't happened yet.
And again, I think the questions, the answers have been on, even though the questions, yeah. The questions could be more concise there. But, oh man. Yeah, I mean, again, that's typical. The state defaults to the safety of kids. They should default to the safety of kids. It's something that you haven't even had them go in and look at the charges, the allegations. No, nobody's done that yet. They've gone in and they've talked about the emergency placement now. They haven't gone further. And what he was saying there too, they can decide with all of this. They can take your kids. CPS has a lot of power That's something I've talked about over and over again. Out of all of these allegations, the one, obviously you don't want to lose your freedom. But outside of that, CPS can be the most dangerous as far as long-term ramifications, because they can very well take your kids. They can take them forever if they want to. I mean, I saw a case where in Texas you had a pretty high-profile government official. I can't remember if it was like the governor at the time, one of his family members. It's been a while, but they were fighting with CPS over just allegations. There were allegations of something that had come up. Children had been removed from their home, and they had the governor or whoever it was, that family member, they were actually intervening, and they couldn't make anything happen. And that tells you how much authority that CPS has. So, with that, I would hope, I would really hope that statements about like CPS officers more, they would probably never mention them ever again live. Like never talk about them live, never mention them by name, never talk about them being liars, any of that, because, I mean, they're human. They respond. And when they respond, they can respond with something, again, they could take away your kids forever with this stuff. I've seen people that's happened to. Again, in mental health, we see one of the things that kids typically, no matter what happens, CPS or DHS, they'll typically put a kid into therapy, and they'll put the kids in. You'll have community-based mental health if parents, they don't have the resources to go and put a child into privatized care. So if they're put into community-based, you get a lot of kids like that. I've seen a lot of cases. Did that for a long time. And a lot of people lost their kids they lost them for extended periods, and some people lose their kids forever. I mean, they make suggestions, and their suggestions carry a lot of weight. I don't think a lot of people understand how powerful that organization is.
Right. Yeah. No. There will still be a determination on that, but and again, I hate to be Larry King here or whatever, but like, what has that been like on you? Like, I feel like I know how it's like where people demonize you and you're not a real person and you're considered just a demon or whatever. What has that been like for you to deal with this?
That part is, it's simultaneously frustrating, and it's also not, because one thing, of course, the truth, like, what happened.
Yes.
No one else knows. The state doesn't know. They have to construct, their story, and then I go and the state go, and we argue our stories. That's court, right? So that hasn't happened yet. But in the meanwhile, what happened in your own house and with your own kids.
Sure.
And no one else does. But the only story that the people on the internet hear is whatever comes out, and it's from the state, unless I decide to go out and tell the full story. Obviously, there is no way to talk.
Some people, for some reason, think this is my interview. I'm not. That's not me interview. I don't have anything to do with this interview. So I was looking at the comments, like, I don't have anything to do with it. I downloaded the interview here.
About anything in your own best interest outside of court. Like, there just isn't. It doesn't matter who you are or what your story is. There's just no way to do it. So I have to wait until that story to court before it can be stated online. So the consequence of that is that in the meanwhile, people will determine whatever they determine. And so it's like, it sucks because You know things that didn't happen that people think did happen, but that's all they can go off of is the information they have. So you can't really be mad about it. You know, you just have to kind of fucking suck it up, man. Like, and it sucks, but what are you going to do? So what happens now for me is wait, eventually tell the story to the court. And then once that telling is done, and everything's resolved, I can share my side with the world, and then they can make their determinations or keep the same ones that they've made. And that's the fucking ropes, man. Like, there's nothing you can do about that.
Now, I'll ask you a couple tough questions here. And
before he answers those questions, yeah, somebody noted too. If you can't tell the difference between, like, I have a very heavy accent. If you can't tell that that's not me interviewing, again, the interviewers froze up, so the picture doesn't move very much. But yeah, I had nothing to do with this interview at all. In fact, I did not think this interview was going to happen. It went live on Rumble, like I said, 4 or 5, and the interview came up hours later, and there was talks about it being canceled, everything else. You know, I didn't even catch it at the very beginning. So I went in and I downloaded it because oftentimes people will privatize that. You know, especially if there's going to be a lot of people talking about it. So I thought I would nab it. But yeah, I mean, if you hear very heavy accent, if I did an interview, my questions would be very pointed. You know, it wouldn't be unfriendly, but they would be, they wouldn't be like, just, hey, how are you feeling about that? You know, they would be pointed to certain things. And maybe that's not a good interview right now, because they would be questions about what's going on in the case.
And you can answer as you please. There are first off, I've stated on the record, there's a follicle test. I don't put any stock in that. You don't have to say anything there, by the way. But I think that's bullshit. But so they have that. They're throwing that out there and putting it out there with one 9-year-old, and I hate to even mention the age, and I won't mention the name, etc.
I appreciate that.
Yes, because it's fucked up. I mean, it's the most fucked up thing I've seen, actually, and I've seen a lot of fucked up shit. What is the feeling from you and your wife, by the way, who I met as well, and by the way, me and you've had beef and we talked a lot of shit about each other, and this is your first appearance back on the show in many years for many reasons, because we talked a lot of shit. But I never, I never would have wished anything like this upon you, or upon your wife, or upon your children. Like, it's insane. What has it been like to deal with personally?
I mean, like what I think you're alluding to is shit like that the follicle test or whatever.
Yes.
Which is got its own story. And again, this is a frustrating one to talk about because there's so much to that. And people are going to take that in the opposite way. I'm not even talking about there's so much to the results or whatever. I'm talking about there's so much to the release of that and the circumstances around it that, again, that whole story isn't even done being told to the court yet. So like there's so much about that, and I can't say anything, which really fucking sucks, because what I can tell you was when we were informed, we were absolutely incensed. Because frankly, that result's fucking impossible.
Well, that's what I said, because like, it's just, I don't know. It makes no sense to me. It doesn't jive with reality, in my opinion. I've said that publicly already, and it's insane, basically, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. That being said, there, and again, you have to be careful with what you say, but it seems to be being used as a hammer against you in other regards. And again, you can comment or not comment on that, but like,
I think what you're, if I can infer your question in the hypothetical without details, there's a thought that the state would use various things as leverage in maybe another situation. So there's sort of, in a situation like this where you have a criminal case and a custody case, you have two parallel tracks that are happening on different timelines. And what happens in one can affect the other in very impactful ways. For example, statements in a child custody case may impact the criminal case, leading to liability. Like if I were to say something in the child custody case, they could technically use it in the criminal case.
Yes.
So what that does is it makes it really complicated to communicate with the state in the custody case, because they want to talk about a whole bunch of things, and saying anything regarding certain subjects, puts you at the chance of having a statement misused against you in the other context. So it makes it really fucking difficult. That difficulty only benefits the state, because the state then has the ability to say, well, they're not answering questions. Like, well, I have a Fifth Amendment right to not answer questions of any kind. But then they say, well, if you don't answer questions, how can we bring children back to your home? I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you meet your burden to show that they shouldn't be there? And it goes back and forth like that. So it's like, without getting into specifics about what things the state can do, having this parallel track on the two cases means that things that happen in one impact the other, and timelines in one can impact the other, and the state uses that leverage in both cases at the same time. They know you want your kids back. They also know that anything that you say to them in the one case can be used against you in a criminal case, and they're looking for a conviction. So those two things are sort of adverse interests for me, and they're parallel and contributing interests to the state. So that's to their advantage. And
I hope
that's a really shitty part about being in the circumstance that I'm in, is like, I just have to navigate that and deal with it. And that's why you hire the right people to do it.
Now, but before I go into M-hole, I guess I'll go into it now, but in a certain way. He was last week accused of abusing his wife, headbutting her and choking her, and again, you can refrain from whatever you want to say about him, but he's presented himself as this truth teller, and it's like, okay, well, his two ex-wives were besties at one point, and he's been accused of choking and headbutting April, and you can get into this or not, but that certainly changed the dynamics of how some people saw what he was saying.
Look, here's what I'll say. I'm going to say the same thing about Aaron that I've said basically every time. Aaron, on what he says. Aaron is his own man. He gets to say whatever he wants to say. He has his own show. And I hope he makes $1 million. People can assess his credibility without my input. A brief statement on the allegations of the that were in the restraining order petition that then allude back to allegations of domestic abuse between Aaron and April. All of that shit happened. All of those allegations and stuff happened before I think before I had even first encountered April, which was, I was on one Simpcast with her in late 2022 or early 2023. I don't remember. And then I didn't re-encounter the Imholtz until September of last year. So all of that stuff happened before I met them, and I'm not involved in that situation. I don't know anything about it other than what people have read in the in the fucking petition that was leaked or whatever. Like, so I can't really comment on it. I don't know.
Right. Well, yeah.
Well, also, if you looked at the evidence that the state had, they list, again, we saw probable cause. We saw everything that was listed with Aaron. That, if you ended up going to trial, you wouldn't want to lock yourself into commentary. You'd want to go after his character. You would. Again, that's not commentary on Aaron, pro or con, not at all. I'm just saying, as far as commentary about Aaron, that would probably be really dumb to lock anything in. Let Aaron speak. And if you end up in trial and, his allegations come up, I expect them to go after his character. Very much. I mean, we see this in every other case. People will take that as excusing behavior, and that's not. It's just typically how a case plays out. Well, he has this restraining order. Look at what these other people have said about him. Look at what he himself has said in streams since... you're talking about streams since you're bringing that up. You would figure you wouldn't want to lock yourself into any type of statements.
And again, I've been accused of things I didn't do by women, and so I'll give him, who knows what happened there. But it certainly changes, in my opinion, at least, like his truth teller persona. Like I don't know. You don't have to comment on it. I'm commenting on it myself, right? Like it's like, oh, okay, this is guy's angel, and then it's like, oh, okay, maybe he's not, right? And so and all that came out. He certainly said a lot about you and your family, and April herself. He alleges she's still there with you, or like at your side home or whatever. You don't have to. I'm not asking you to confirm that at all, but like I saw Dick Masterson, a common friend of ours, say, well, this kind of changes the situation, right? Like this might be a guy protecting a woman from spousal abuse, right? Like, and you don't have to confirm that or deny that, but
I want to address that real quick. There's a tendency for some people to try and promote themselves as some sort of noble, generous hero or whatever. Look, guys, my concern right now in all of this is that I have an ongoing felony charge, and right now I'm focused entirely on getting my children back where they belong in their home with their parents. So I'm not if people want to speculate on any sort of motivations and stuff when they don't have any of the external details, that's what the internet does. It's great at speculation and gossip. And what I'll say is this: the people involved can speak for themselves if they choose to. And it's not my job to do that for anybody. So I'm not claiming to be any sort of hero. I'm not claiming there's a reason to be a hero. That's other people can go ahead and do their hero promotion all they want. I'm worried about my felony, and I'm worried about my family. That felony charges, to be clear, before someone has a fucking autism fit. But I'm worried about the felony charges, and I'm worried about my family. Like, trying to concern myself with any other thing that's not there.
Do you think he'll go to jail?
Me?
Yeah.
I fucking hope not. It's look, man. I did my overnight at the county lockup, and it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't the worst thing ever. I just mostly slept because I have narcolepsy, so I just laid down, went to sleep, woke up. There was another shitty meal there, and did that again until my arraignment. But Minnesota, like, I can briefly talk about this because it's
lockup's one day. Lockup is not going to jail either. Just to note, if you think lockup is bad, lockup is the best case scenario for yourself. You know, you go to jail. Woo, man. I mean, we've all seen the documentaries on going to jail. That is, lockup one day. Yes, that is an inconvenience. It sucks. It would suck. I've never been to lockup, by the way, but yeah, I mean, you go, like, we have our lockup at our sheriff's department out here, and compared to going to the jail, I mean, that place is a freaking 5-star restaurant out here. You know, you see their food, and their food, I'm not saying their food's good or anything, but compared, we've done tours of the jail before, and yeah, going to jail, whew, if you think that's bad, I would be very motivated to keep my ass out of jail. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if it would be the best choice being here for this interview. Again, the answer is, I don't think there's been anything that has really locked in anything that hasn't already been stated before, but going on, I was surprised this interview happened. Just to be honest, I was very surprised the interview happened.
It's a general thing.
Sure, go ahead.
Minnesota has codified sentencing guidelines. Congress got together, wrote a law that says, here's how crimes should be sentenced. And they have 3 different sentencing guideline grids. They have.
Okay, the key word in there is should. Should be. Not has to be. You don't always have to follow with that. Typically, you know, if everything plays out a specific way, then yes, they will go with that sentence. But it's a should be. This is not an inflexible rule. The general
grid, then they have the drug offender grid, and then they have the sex offender grid. So my felony charge is 2nd-degree possession currently, and that is on the drug offender grid. And what happens is you have the 2 axes. The y-axis is the level of offense, and the 2nd-degree drug possession is pretty high up there. I think it's 7 out of 10.
And they score these things like points. Yes, I know how it goes. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So the x-axis is the number of offenses. Well, I'm a first-time offender as far as the grid is concerned. Like, speeding tickets and shit don't count. So I'd be a first-time offender. If speeding tickets counted, we know.
Oh my God, I saw those. Oh my God, he didn't show up for a speeding ticket. Oh my God, he's the worst guy ever. Anyway, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'll leave that alone. But go ahead.
It's fine. But no, so I'd be a first time offender, and so the presumptive sentence for a conviction for 2nd-degree possession of a controlled substance is 48 months. It's either 44 or 48 months. Doesn't really matter. It's one of those 2. But there's a presumptive stay of execution. So what that means is the judge will sentence you to the 44 or 48 months, whatever it is.
Suspend it, right?
Right. And they'll suspend it out, and you're put on probation. You may have county jail time, and you may have a fine imposed. But the presumptive sentence is not going to prison. There's some flexibility in there, but deviating from that in Minnesota requires the judge to actually have reasons, and that shit's appealable. So, look, the prospective outlook on us, if everything just kind of goes normal and then ends up with us being found guilty, like if we went to trial and were found guilty, so no like plea deal, leniency or anything like that, that would be a prospective or a presumptive stage sentence of it's like I said, it's either 44 or 48 months, and then we'd be put on probation for like a year or 2 years.
Narcotic treatment
now,
for narcolepsy?
a whole shitload of things could happen in the meanwhile, right? Like they could determine that we don't meet the criteria for second degree possession, and it should be third, or they could decide that they found us running a slave trade or something, and like tack on a bunch of charges, or I could get like in really weird theory, like I could get charged with a felony, do a speedy trial, and have that trial have me convicted, and then I'd be I'd be a second time offender, right? Like all of those things could change the outcome, but the presumptive sentence would have no prison time, and as far as jail time goes, it's impossible to say what a judge would do, and I'm not aware of anything that the currently not aware of any plans of the county for things like if they wanted to pursue aggravating factors or whatever. We just don't have enough. We don't have any information about that stuff yet. We're way too early in the process. So
now you did have the judge.
So again, what he's saying there is, again, you have sentencing guidelines, but you don't actually know what the state is going to do. They could do things that could be for your benefit. Again, they can make suggestions for your benefit. They can add on other things, but typically, first time offender, you look at 44, 48 months. They sentence you to that, but they're like, you don't actually have to go to jail. We're going to put you, we're going to make sure you don't screw this up. As long as you don't screw up in X amount of time, yeah. Now, jail time is a different matter. You see that with all types of offenses. Everything from drug, DUI. This judge is a hard case for sentencing too. This judge, if you look at a lot of the sentences that he has imposed, he has gone with suggestions outside of that in some cases. And some of those sentences have been hardcore. But when you look at it and you compare it to suggestions, it's like, wow. So, did they have any idea what the state? No. Like, this is at the very beginning. And he's right in that for sure. If you look at the court documentation, you're just now getting into the back and forth of, hey, exactly, his lawyer essentially said, what exactly do you have on us? And they answered, they gave that breakdown, which we saw yesterday, and it had body cam footage, the evidence as far as pictures, and we've seen the breakdowns and everything, but that is really, really early in this.
Changed, right? From what I read, and what was that reason?
Minnesota gives you 10 days, I believe it is. 10 days to just have a one-time shot to remove a judge and to change them out. So the judge in my criminal case was the judge in my civil case, which is ongoing, and I requested to have that judge changed. You don't have to have a reason. It's literally just
a strike. It's like a strike, right? You have the ability, right?
Yeah, well, that's the judge, by the way. They did remove the judge, but that's the judge also. There were a lot of things said about. There were quite a few things said about. So they did get that judge changed out. That was the first move. Hey, this judge, there's an issue here. They're involved in another case. They got that changed out. For some reason, I was watching Kino Casino, and they said that some lawyers, they were saying that would be hard to do. Now that's something people go for like right off the bat. Again, you have X amount of days depending on depending on where you're at. He said 10 days for Minnesota. But yeah, with them being involved in another case and everything else, he's lucky that judge can't make any determination in this. Again, could they influence it? Possibly. We're talking about, here's the thing. We're talking about the law and rules. And the law and rules, people have the authority to also influence things behind the scenes, whether that's fair or not. People are human, and yeah, they don't always, they don't see things within the black and white of the law. Like, what I mean is, if you go out and you talk smack about them for 6 minutes, maybe they're motivated to make sure that you don't have a fun ride with this. Maybe they make sure that somebody throws the book at you. Maybe they know other folks. Again, we don't know anything about that, but I know in my own town, all the judges, and it's small, so they all know each other. And you better believe if you were talking smack about one, that could cause you some real problems. Same thing with DHS. Talking smack about them, not good. You want them to stick to you want them not to really know you. Because if they know you, Nick also still has the Monty stuff. Like, outside of all of this, there is more going on top of it. Like, that's put on the back burner. Like, there's no discussion about that, but all of that's going on as well. So, there's a lot piled up in here. And again, that doesn't take priority, shouldn't take priority. I can't speak for anybody, again, I can't speak for mindset there, but this stuff, this is lose your freedom, lose your kids kind of. And later on, you still have more, and you still have that judge. So,
yeah. I can see why you would do that, but like, it doesn't matter whether you have a reason or not. Like, you can just take that person out, right? Okay. All right. So I want to ask you about that. Let me ask you this. There is a contingent of your audience or former audience, or, you still have a very successful live stream. I saw you the other day. You had 2,000 people watching, whatever, or more. Right. Yeah. Praise be. And that's great. That's very successful. That's like in the top 1% or more of streamers. And so, you're still doing pretty well, but, I see people, it's mostly from Kiwi Farms, to be honest with you. But, they'll say you presented yourself as someone that you're not. That you acted like you were this Christian upholding, family man, and you weren't actually that person, and they felt personally hurt enough about it that they wanted to attack you, which is also a totally different level. Like that's one thing. It's one thing to say, like, okay, this guy wasn't what I thought he was, and I just said fuck him. But also, it's another level to say, oh, he wasn't what he thought he was, and now I want to attack him. But your thoughts on that, allegation, because it's out there.
Sure. So it's like in two parts. One is Nick presented himself. Well, let's do it in backwards order of what I was going to do. Am I the same person that I was when I started streaming? Well, no. One, I think streaming itself changes you because you place yourself in this in the public eye. And then, that's more sort of stimulus or input into who you are. You get criticism, you get compliments, you get commentary about who you are at a far accelerated rate. If you think about how long it takes you walking around your town to encounter 1,000 people, And yet right now in this live stream, we got what, like a couple thousand people watching right now. So you got a couple thousand people who could be, who are possibly giving you input, calling you retarded or whatever. Whereas when I walk around town, only about like 35, 45 people call me retarded. And so that changes you. I mean, it just does. Plus, I'm just significantly older than I was. Six or 7 years now. Yeah, I started in. I'm coming up on 7 years of streaming. Like 7 years of time, generally speaking, is a pretty drastic for me. Like that's a lot of change that's happened. When I look at any 7 year period going backwards, I'm a way different person every 7 years. On kind of the outward stuff. Now, getting to the crux of your question with like Nick presented himself as this tradcon person.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying other people said that, right? Like, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think you probably have a lot of experience with this too.
I do.
Is that people they get a glimpse. I describe it as trying to describe the inside of a ship when all you can do is look through a porthole.
So like true.
They see this little window and then they have to fill in the gaps. And for us, we let you fill in the gaps because one, we can't address everybody's individual interpretation of who we are. There's not like physically time for it. But you let people fill in the gaps. Obama called himself a blank slate, for example, that people post their opinion or put themselves onto. It's kind of like that, just not as pretentious as Obama makes it.
It's
just like
similar though. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
You go out and you do what you do, and you may have a persona or not. It doesn't really matter. And people have to paint a picture. Well, my picture looks like this. I've been married almost 20 years now. I have 5 kids. I'm a Christian. We homeschool. So, and I like guns and stuff. So like people go, oh, blam, 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 conservative, right? Like super conservative, traditional conservatism. And I tick a lot of those boxes because, I'm fairly right leaning. I like low taxes. I can have complex discussions about immigration, but I think a country needs to secure its borders, of all of, and I believe in capitalism in general. So like I have a lot of conservative things. So people, and depending on the subject matter that you encounter, it'll really look like, if you go back, it'll really look like I'm super conservative. But there are a lot of issues that I'm pretty damn socially liberal on. And I've also grown more socially liberal on some issues, as time went on. So like that, the combined effect of, as people get exposed to just different facets of who you are, they can take that as like a betrayal. Like you promised them something and then you did the opposite. It's like, well, I didn't really promise it. And they're like, you didn't portray yourself that way. It's like, well, there's a lot of ways I haven't portrayed myself because I didn't really have the opportunity to do so. But I don't know. I try not to like make it into anything bigger than that. If people change, like if they,
that dinging is people trying to get into his stream, by the way. I'm sorry. I just, when I listened to this, I was like, oh my God, there's something wrong with my computer. It's blowing up. What the hell's going on? Because I set this up and I walked away from it. I was on the other side of the room. I had to speak. I was listening and I kept hearing that ding, 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 ding. And I thought my computer was going to blow up. It's because however he did this, he has people trying to get into the stream the entire time. I don't know. I find that really, really funny. Again, people can do whatever they want with their lives. I think the commentary that people had there, though, was it kind of came up in a joke with Pride Week. Like Yellow Flash made a joke, and he was like, "Hey, Happy Pride Week to Nick Rekieta." Now, a lot of the different things that Nick has talked about, opinions. I mean, again, they would be the opposite of that, and again, I mean, if all this other stuff with April and everything else, when that comes into play, I believe that's one of the letters there with the alphabet. I think you fit into the alphabet now, and that's what a lot of people were pointing out. For me, I don't give a shit. That's the least of any of this. The least of it. That would be something I might laugh about on a stream with somebody and goof off with them about. That is the least of everything that has gone on. Again, the drug charge. I would want if it were a friend of mine, I would want them to get their life together. And no matter what. But the kid thing, that's what people react really volatilely to allegations that involve kids. They do. I mean, we all know this. That is the one thing, the one stickler. Everybody laughs at your stupid. But they don't laugh at that part right there. That's where people reacted in a different manner. So the other stuff, again, people are welcome to whatever opinion on that. But I would think out of everything, that might turn audience. That might have some but the other stuff, that's what you really have a problem with, real life, and you also have a problem with as a streamer. I gotta ask if you can hear. I'm going through this. Some of this stuff, listening to interviews, sometimes is very painful. So if you hear a video game noise or something, yes, I am playing my Nintendo Switch. I am playing Enter the Gungeon, but it is not the beeping on here either. I also added the subtitles in. If you upload and let it process through Dropbox, it will add probably the best subtitles to anything. YouTube screws up subtitles. All these platforms, they do a terrible job. But for some reason, Dropbox has they're about 95% accurate, I've found. So any interview, if you want to go in and you want to add really correct subtitles to something, drop it in, let it process for something like this, even at its low quality. It's about a 1.5 gigs, I think. It'll process within an hour. So anyway,
they think you've changed and they don't like who you are, then okay. Sorry. I'm not I know who I am and where I believe I've changed. Other people have different opinions, and that's cool. I don't mind. If you like the show, keep watching. There. If you like making fun of me, keep watching. And if you don't, peace, man. It's cool. That's part of the business.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And also, people only get a certain glimpse into your life, right? What you're talking about on air, and they get this certain persona, and believe me, I know. And I don't have to tell you the story. And a lot of those times were great times. That period of my life. I love that period in my life, but it ended, right? And it was a bad ending, right? So, what else can you do? But go ahead, say what you want to say.
I was just going to say, the different things that people get to do in life, there's the family man part of me, right? That part is a huge part. And,
Ralph, let me
the internet only gets this tiny window into it. They don't see what my average day is like and how I interact with my kids, and that's fine. That's not really their business. It's not what I put online, and that's that also means that people will speculate about it to a higher degree with less facts to base their speculation on. That's the trade-off. Some people put their kids all over the place, and that always weirds me the fuck out. I
regret that because I had a child. I can't be too specific, unfortunately, because of legal reasons. But And I put them out, put pictures out, and it's like, oh, I want to show it. Like normal people do that, right? Nick, you know what I'm talking about? Like, oh, here's my baby so and so. Like, oh, wow, it's great, it's great, it's great. But you don't really have that leeway as a person like we are. And
because we go online and talk a bunch of talk a bunch of
bullshit. Yeah.
It's part of it. And so, I mean, I remember when I first went in and I was like, oh shit, I got to actually lock down my Facebook page. Cause I got these you got pictures of your kids up there or whatever. And it's like, well, you could try and go back and start curating your Facebook page, or I could just lock it the fuck down and only use it to talk to my family if I ever need to. Like that's about that. But, it's just a different thing. The advantage that I had over you is that, I had my kids a lot earlier.
True.
And a long time before I was involved in and talking
all
online
this bullshit. Yeah.
And combine that with Lady Raggets and I were always kind of paranoid about having our kids out there too much. So we already had pretty limited sharing of our children's pictures and stuff. And so once I started streaming and being out on the internet more publicly, it wasn't hard at all to kind of lock that down. And there are very few instances where my kids show up on something. It's almost never on something that I've done. So,
but there are some though.
Yeah, of course.
And so I'll just cut you off there, and not to be rude, but the reason I cut you off there is because of the church aspect. And you had spoken publicly of your disagreements with certain aspects of church teachings, that church's teachings, etc. And I have not shown this on my stream because I am horrified by thinking about that happening to my children. But they're out there, right? And so, what do you think about that in general? And what do you think about the church in general? And would you do it again to put them out there like that?
It's an interesting thing you never really think of. You never think that, oh yeah, a lot of churches kind of have a camera and they just show,
Sure.
they're filming their sermons and sharing them out there. And some of the churches, I used to go to this when I lived in the Twin Cities. My friend was a associate pastor at one of the really big churches there. And we would go a couple times and they have fancy fucking camera work. They got all these 8K cameras and they zoom in on people and track them around. And, their worship sets are big fucking rock concerts and stuff. And then you have small town churches where it's one static camera that's just taking a wide shot. And there's not someone panning and scanning the whole fucking time. So they are going to invariably pick up some of the congregation. And I never even thought about it. Right. But then people were posting a video from the church service. It's holy shit, that's wild.
I didn't show it for the record because I don't feel that's appropriate, to be honest. And
so that was kind of confusing the way that it came up. But there were, if people haven't watched the Twitter side of this, or they haven't kept up with people that cover everything. I've covered interviews and court documents. That has been what I've limited what I'm covering to. But there were video feeds. I don't know how much video feed, but there was video feed of Nick's church that came out, and there were commentary about him, who was there, and other things. So that has to be that has to be what caused that question here. I didn't actually hit that part of it, but yeah, there was feed. You could, again, you could see him, family, and everything else. By the way, I don't show things like that because it does involve kids. And yeah, one thing I can say I do agree on with this is that streaming is a learning lesson. You don't realize how crazy the internet can be. Like, my kids interrupt my streams, and that's fine. You know, I'm here, they come to me for whatever. Pictures and stuff like that, man. you just don't realize how crazy the internet is. That if anything, I could agree on that. You learn you learn about that stuff as you go along, and maybe you should know that. But most people, you don't expect to have any success. You just pick up a microphone and talk about some stupid stuff online. You know, if your kids are part of something, they are. But anyway, let me continue.
And the fact that they name your children in these documents without redaction, like, I feel like that's fucked up. But I didn't show it. But anyway, go ahead, continue your thought.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's weird. As to our church, you know, I'm not going to speak too much about it. Look, every community, it doesn't matter what kind of community is, has similar characteristics, right? People are effectively people. And there's some variation in some of the numbers of like gossips or busybodies or people who are really accepting, you know, like that. There's some variation amongst groups, but it's all basically the same. You get a distribution of everything. And so, you know, let's just say that there's a lot of shit said by members of our church that is completely fucking false and completely baseless, like legitimately baseless. And if they had simply asked anybody, these things could have been dispelled. And I'll address one of them specifically because this one's come up a lot, or it came up a lot a while back. There's so much juicier stuff now, but there was an allegation, for example, that Lady Rackets and I went to a casino and left our children at home in the care of our oldest. Now, for one, that would be legal in the state of Minnesota. Our oldest is old enough to do that. That's not acceptable in our house. That has never been. That would never be something that we would do. And the only times we have ever gone to the casino is there 3 times. Twice was for the Make-A-Wish ball this year and the previous year. And then the other time was at Christmas. All of those times, our children were with Lady Racket's parents. Like, so we've never left our children, even if we would have, it would have been legal. But we never did that because we're guys, we hired a full-time fucking nanny just to make sure that our children always had supervision and to make sure that there were always adults readily available to transport the children, to feed and clothe them, and to make sure that they were supervised. And so, like,
I saw somebody said that this kind of stuff right here is TMI. Actually, this allegation, though, the reason it's being addressed is because this wasn't just some random item that came up. This actually got listed in allegations. You know, there were anonymous sources that came in. They made allegations. So this is specifically talking about an allegation. So, you know, if somebody's looking at this and they're like, this is just too much information about kids or just your regular, this is actually not, this pertains to allegations that they ended up, again, that specific item, it was listed in the probable cause items. That may not be probable cause that, again, gets someone to kick your door in, but that was listed along with several other allegations. So that's why it came up, period.
Like this, it was wild to read that because, like, all you had to do is not ask us. You didn't have to ask us. All you had to do is ask Lady Racket's parents, who, you know, like, these people know them. If they would have just asked, like, oh man, they went to the casino and they left their kids at home, they would have said, no, they were at our house. That's it. Solved. And so it's like, but that allegation gets made and put in a document. And if you read that, it's like, well, someone heard that and told the pastor that, and he's like, well, I don't know if that's okay. Well, first of all, if you read the law, that would be okay. But second of all, we didn't fucking do it. And so that gets shared around, and it's like, well, no, like
it's a small town. It's a small town. Right, yeah.
And if all people had to do is ask. It's like, well, yeah, we could have corrected that real fucking quick, but instead you went to the government. I guess it's weird, man. That's a strange fucking attitude, in my opinion. But
and I'll ask you this: do you regret living in a small town? Because this has been brought up by Tick Masterson and others, and common friend of ours, like that this would not have happened, possibly not have happened, if you were in Miami or St. Paul for that matter, right? Like a bigger city, where people got.
Small towns are the greatest thing for your kids, man. I live in a small town. Yes, you have some busybody mofos around your town. You can't blame things on a small town, though. Small town, as far as small town living, man, my kids, we can go out. Like, we can get to know people. We have neighbors that know our names. They have been around for years, and they will be around for years. Their families will take over where they live. There's, I would never trade in a small town for that. I've lived in cities, and you lose so much. Sure, yeah, you can go to more stores, and there's more nightlife or anything like that. But as a parent, but also, it's, again, allegations. Again, the state has to prove their allegations 100%. But with the allegations there, would this stuff have still potentially come to light? Absolutely. It could have. Absolutely. There was a lot of talk. They had they didn't break his door down because of the allegations that were made by a pastor. They waited on that. They didn't see that as... I'm choosing my words carefully on that. They didn't see it as the pressing need. They thought there's a reason why that happened. They were looking into drugs, and drug allegations would have created an unsafe environment, which would create that allegation of child neglect. But as far as everything else, I mean, you still have neighbors. Even in a city, this stuff, that question doesn't set with me well, because again, small towns, most people strive to live in a place. Like, I can go outside. I have 2 acres of area. My kids could go out. They could play. They can have fun. It's the greatest thing for them. As far as family are concerned, hell to the yes. Anybody that would blame this stuff on a small town, that is totally jacked up.
Gossip about you in a small town. I am from a small town. I was born in Memphis, but I lived in West Memphis. And so it was a 20,000 person town. And so people talk about you all the time and throw all this stuff out there. Do you have some regrets over that?
No. I mean, look, you can always say something would or wouldn't have happened somewhere else or under some other circumstance, but there's no way to know that. There's no way to sort of gauge that. And as you know, the part of all this is, as was brought up, we're in the public eye.
Yes.
Because of our own choosing in a lot of ways. But that means that, we would have been in the public eye in, presumably, all other things being equal, in any city. And so could this have come up in the exact same way? I mean, it depends. If we were in a big city, Lady Raggets and I probably wouldn't be going to a mega church. That's not the feel we would go to. So we might have the same sort of environment church environment that led to the sort of gossipy bullshit that was going on. Like, so it's hard to fucking say what would happen. I don't like to speculate. It would have been different. I know what Dick is saying, but no, I don't regret living in a small town. I like it. I like the country life. I didn't think I would. I was raised in cities, but I like it out here. It's peaceful until there's a bunch of sheriffs in your fucking driveway.
Till they're knocking at your fucking door. Yeah.
See, I'm not a transplant from that. You can tell from my accent. I'm not a transplant into the country. I've moved away, but I've always come back. And it's not just peaceful. Like here, for example, you want, if you're focusing on family, for us, we've had in 3 or 4 years, we had one killing, one. And that was because of a domestic dispute gone wrong. Yes, there are people have your own problems. Like out in BFE, they manufacture stuff. You don't go there, But damn, I know plenty of people around my community. I've learned a lot of life skills that I wouldn't learn anywhere else. And again, my kids will grow up in a nurturing environment. I hate how small town gets dumped on. I would never fucking move to a place like Miami or anything. The cost of living is insane. Oh, Jesus, man. Like blaming anything on the small town. Just he said no, I wouldn't do that. But the idea that people blame the situation on small town because quote unquote gossip, that's boggles my mind.
Yeah, I understand, but so okay. And of course, people are trying to raid this chat, and they can't get in unless I let them in, and I'm not gonna let them in because it's me and you, right here.
Speaking of, I gotta book it in about 9 minutes, man.
That's
I'm
cool.
Sorry.
That's cool. No, it was an hour. That was what was agreed upon. But
I'll come back on if you want to continue the interview. It's just it's in about 9 minutes. I gotta run. But I'm not opposed to again scheduling out because I know we had a lot of technical difficulties at the start,
did.
and so happy to do that. Not a problem.
Yes, I would love to do that, and I would definitely take you up on that offer because we did have some technical difficulties. But
I cut those out. By the way.
So I'm trying to think. I know you don't want to talk about Aaron and all his bullshit that he's put out here. Did you lose your way in a certain respect?
Did I lose my way? I don't know. That's an interesting question because the answer to that could presume a set of circumstances that is true or not true or partially true. What I'll say is this.
That was a court. I actually liked this question, to be honest. I liked this question quite a bit. It took a minute to get there, but I did. Hey, do you feel like, again, that you lost your way? And he went with the, well, that might lock me into something that, again, might be used against me in court. But that's an interesting question to return to another day.
As far as, again, whatever Aaron's saying, that's his own shit that he gets to say, and determine his credibility on your own. Sure. I'm not helping anybody do that. What I'll say is this. I made plenty of choices in life and made plenty of choices about over the past year that I would do the exact same and plenty I would do differently. And it's it's not really worth dwelling on that shit. You just learn from what happened and then you modify your behavior going forward. I don't know if I lost my way because I'm not sure what way I had other than the way I went. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
No, they're asking if you would have fucking had, if you look back, we can all look back on life and be like, hey, the me, I guess I would ask it a different way. You look at the you when you were happiest, when your kids were in your home and everything else. And then you look at the chain of events that, I'll even use the word allegedly, led up to this. Do you feel that while you went through that, that maybe there's some choices there, that lifestyle choices and other things that maybe you wouldn't make again? I think there's a way to ask that.
And again, I say this to people, they only get a glimpse of you from the streaming. And you and I have talked about this briefly, but like being a streamer and putting it out there, but you only put a little bit out there, right? Like people don't really understand what it's like to be under the microscope. Most people don't, at least. And so it's hard to deal with when that shit blows up.
Yeah, and it's weird because you have a couple options when when the microscope gets turned on you, or sometimes it's a telescope, right? Like you have a couple options, and it's like you can try and address things. You can try and joke along with it. You can try and deny things, or you can confirm things. And the reality is that streamers do a mix of all of it, right? Like you sometimes you're throwing fucking darts. Like it's like, do you like roll with these jokes? And then the jokes become like, I was actually just talking about this with Lady Rackets while we were driving today. It was like in our sector, in the sector, right? Like there are things that are jokes, and there'll be a joke for a while, or like maybe someone has a really bad day, and there's like a meme joke that comes out of it, and it starts off like funny and memey, but then something else happens, and it makes it like way more serious and fucking brutally mean.
Yeah,
and then you're like, that joke that was kind of like funny and lighthearted is now fucking vicious, and like we're throwing darts trying to like figure out how to do it. So sometimes you roll with a joke at the beginning, but then it becomes this vicious thing, and you're like, well, now I can't reel that back in. There's no way to do it. And so other times you just have to kind of fucking like deny shit outright, like when it's really bad, I guess. But you also don't have time to address everything. So it's a fucking tough sort of circumstance to be in, because you never know what to do, or like how the internet is going to take something, or how they're going to change like what the advice is on how to handle something. Because do you remember when the advice for everything was lean into the joke?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, how's Vito doing with leaning into the joke? Right?
Not well. Yeah. And that's not good advice, by the way. But that's just lean into it. Just play into it. No big deal. And it doesn't work out that way. Now I'm going to run through some super chats. I know you don't have long. And I would love to have you back, like you said, for another conversation. And it's funny because you and I had a great relationship for years, and then all of a sudden we didn't, and many reasons for whatever. Yeah, it is what it is.
The reality though is it was a bunch of stupid little misfires and miscommunications, and there's like, you have those, and then you have little people prodding on the outsides, and then like those prods like overlap with a joke, and then something gets misunderstood, and like one person will have a shitty day and they'll take it bad, and the other person will have a shitty day and take it bad, and then all of a sudden like you've been like prompted into having a fucking fight with someone you were chill with just like a month before. It's weird, man. Like, what the hell is that? Like, why'd this blow up in my face?
It's crazy, honestly, because you and I, we met in person. I met you. I met your wife. I had good times with you guys, and not in a nefarious way, by the way, to be clear.
Oh no! You started it. God damn it, Ralph! God damn it! I knew this was a bad idea.
But I mean, like, I knew you guys personally, right? And we met in person, and I enjoyed those meetings and enjoyed your company and your wife's company, and hanging out. And then things get twisted, and there's certain aspects to it. We could go into it all. It's not worth it. But like, I will ask you this, and then I'll run through the super chats and the more critical questions that were sent to me real quick, so I can get you off here.
Real quick, man.
Yeah, real quick. But what and something just
And Keith Ellison sent $5, Nick. It is the fact that only your wife.
All right. Well, look. I'll get to that. But what I'm saying is, people see what they see on their screen, and they take a certain perception of it, and they feel like personally hurt if you don't live up to their expectations, right? And it's happened to me many times, right? And I don't know what you think about that, but if you do have a thought on it, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, well, anytime we all generate expectations about everything, and when they're met or exceeded, it's great. When they're not met, it sucks. And there's various degrees as to how much that is true in either direction. And the degree is, proportional to how much investment you have in it. Some people have a lot of investment in our shows and our personalities. Some people, like, we meet them and see them whenever we go to live events. You see that I've seen the same set of people several times at multiple shows. It's like you kind of get to know them. If you then betray something, even if you didn't mean to, but like you somehow betray that, then that person's going to really be pissed off. Some guy who like watches a clip of you one time is like, oh, I bet that guy's an asshole. And then he watches another video a year later. He's like, yep, that guy was an asshole. Like that doesn't matter to him at all, So it's like, that definitely happens. And there's nothing we can do about it though. Like at some point you can, like, if you're charging money to sell someone a product that's based on a set of principles, then you betray those principles. That's bad. If you're like talking online and people have the opportunity to contribute to the show, like paying something and then they don't like something that you do, that's a different character to me. Like, that's not false advertising. Like, that's not the same, right? The one is like, I'm selling you this thing, but it's bullshit. The other one is like, you're participating in a thing and having fun, and then you don't like something later. And it's like, oh, well, then they just have the choice to say, okay, well, I won't do that again. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense, actually. And, I don't know. It's a show. It's entertainment. And then some people take it personally when they don't feel like you did what they thought you should do, right? And so I completely understand. I'm going to run through these real quick, and I'll speed run, and so just to get you out of here. And I hope we can have you back. This has been the first time in 3 years since you've been on the show. You're a Killstream Hall of Famer. Obviously, you've done so much on this show, and so I don't want to make it just like about this drama. Like, I'm actually happy to have you back on the show regardless of all this, right?
Yeah, man. Hey, can I like really have to go. Can you hit me with one critical question and then seriously save them? And when I come back, and we can do it soon, like I can address them, but I'm up on a hard deadline that just came up. So like, I gotta go. So hit me with a critical question, like as fast as you can.
That's
please.
cool.
And
Okay. Well, let me look through these. Okay. Give me 1 second. And I'll look through. What about Drex and Camelot?
So here's the thing. I barely have fucking any time to watch things that are out there. So people will send me stuff about like so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that. Here's the thing. I've talked to Camelot a couple times. Right now, most of the people I talk to are lawyers, and Camelot's racing and stuff. Like, I don't know what he said. Camelot's been my boy forever. What if I haven't heard him say, I hate you, I'm gonna kill you now. He's never said anything like that. So like, I'm not gonna like make any decisions on that. Drex, dude, I've talked to Drex one time in like the past 8 months. And, it's like, I don't know what happened with Drex, but I haven't talked to him. He hasn't been out here in forever. I'd love to hang out with him and like actually catch up. I don't know what he said or not said either. I've heard some stuff, but it's like, I can't go off what other people say someone says. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Drex was really upset. I mean, if you want to get down to it, Drex was very upset. He actually said the same thing. I haven't had any communication with him in about 8 months. At the very beginning, before any of the legal stuff came up, I mean, this has been discussed at length. There was the discussion of, again, Rekieta's got some issues, it looks like. People need to do an intervention. And Drex was one of the people, to do that. You're not gonna just do that online. Like, if you did that online, that would be an absolute train wreck. Let's live stream an intervention, or even like, hey, we're all, you could turn that off. You'd have to have somebody present that in person. And Drex, obviously would have been the choice for that, but Drex hadn't had communication for whatever reason. He didn't get into that or anything, but I mean, he did have that interview with Camelot where he talked about stuff. But again, the 8-month thing, yeah, that actually came from Drex too. So I don't know what was going on there. But that was.
And I'm focused on like actually dealing with the real shit right now, rather than keeping up what other streamers are saying.
That's probably smart.
One more question, only because people bug me about it. They claim there is other CPS like involvement before this, etc. You can clear
there are three. I can clear this up real quick.
Sure.
There are three things that came out in there's a report today. It's like a discovery report or something that got, I think, filed. And it talks about 3 prior CPS interactions.
Yes.
One of them was in 2000. Well, the file number is from 2009. That's not actually when it was. That's not our family. Lady Raggets and I were foster parents.
Really?
We were foster parents before our first child was born. And we stopped being foster parents just a little bit before our second child was born. Lady Raggets was pregnant, and she was put on bed rest because she had some bleeding that they were concerned about. And so we were no longer able to keep fostering when she was put on bed rest, because I wasn't home and she wasn't able to lift, the kids. The kids unfortunately had to go to another family, and then they were out of our care at that point. It had nothing to do with us. That's just, we're part of the file because we were the foster parents. I don't even remember the last name of that file. It was a long fucking time ago. There was like a February 15th report, and I have no idea what the hell is up with that report. It was ignored by CPS. And then there was a 515 or 516 report. That's the infamous one from our pastor. Yeah. And that one was also actually ignored by CPS. it's called screening them out. So CPS found that there were not substantial allegations to meet the criteria to merit an investigation, and so they ignored them. Again, the CPS involvement in our family is strictly related to the execution of the search warrant and the allegations resulting
sent $1
from that
Ask Nick if he will
around a
release the body
substance
cam
that was
footage
allegedly
willingly.
removed from our home. I have to
Ask
say all
Nick
these
if he will
alleged
release
to
the
make
body
sure
cam.
there's no whatever. But this is all the government allegations. That's that's the family matter that we have. The other stuff was ignored by CPS and has not been re-pursued or anything like that. So people don't have to take my word on that. Believe me, disbelieve me, it doesn't fucking matter to me because I'm worried about the.
So I talked to a CPS person today earlier because I was curious about CPS claims, even if they're unwarranted. They show up, like if there's a court filing, and yeah, the way they put them in their system. I mean, the way I understand when they pull up records again, if you're a CPS worker, you could, or a DHS worker, you could clarify this even more. But when you pull up records, all of those complaints are on there because if they dismiss a claim and then something comes in and you decide later on, wait a minute, there was a claim about this. Maybe when we go in, maybe there's something more to that. And again, I'm not saying there is with this. I'm just saying as far as the records on that, yeah, all of that stuff is still kept with your name. So every call that comes in, warranted or not, those things, yeah, they keep a record of it. I did not realize, though, that all of that would end up in court filings. That's quite, that's crazy in its own way. I mean, we've dealt with false stuff with CPS before. It's wild. You could wow, you could be sitting there and people thinking, my God, what happened with this? But yeah, that's just the way their system works. And it should too, because, if there was an allegation, say there was an allegation that came in the media, there wasn't enough to say that this thing was warranted. And they come back and it's like, wait a minute. There really is a problem. They can build on that. And they can actually, if all complaints are anonymous, like you as the person being aimed at, you're not going to find out who that was. But oftentimes they're going to have a name with that. I'm sure they could follow up on that too in many situations and more.
The case itself, but hopefully someday I can show the story, but I got to wait till after everything's done. And with that, dude, I got to go.
I was saying, I want to end it with this. I guess just the mental toll. I've been through a lot myself. How have you been able to survive this and still, a lot of people say, hey, he shouldn't be streaming, he shouldn't be talking, he shouldn't be doing this, he shouldn't be talking to Ralph. How have you been able to do that in spite of what people are saying?
The true, raw, honest answer is not very well. It fucking sucks. Every day sucks. And then you do a show or whatever, and people are like, oh, he should be this, he should be that, he should be mad, he should be sad, he should be upset, he should be contrite or remorseful or whatever. It's like, yeah, you are all those things all the fucking time. But when you're doing a show, you gotta go to work. You gotta do your job. And I could get on the stream and be pissed off and screaming and hollering, but that's not gonna do me or the audience any good. So you kind of pull it together temporarily, like you would when you do anything else in your life. And then you go back to shit being really fucking hard later when the show's done. And
the show is actually a relief though, right? That's how I feel it, right? When I have things going on in my life, the show I mean, minus the bullshit, right? Like, but it's almost like a good distraction, right? Like it's like I can get away from this for this period of time. I can do my job. I can focus on this, and then when it's over, it's over. Like I'm thinking about all the bullshit, but I don't know. At least for me, that's how it is.
It is. It's a nice little. It's a release in that way, but it's also a task, and tasks
sure
because then you're not thinking. But dude, I'm sorry, I really gotta go.
No problem. Go ahead and go. And I thank you for coming on the show and giving me the first exclusive interview. And I would love to have you back. And I know you're under a lot of stress, and I wish you the best. I wish your family the best. I'm sorry for the things I said in the past. I shouldn't have done that. And so,
like we said behind the scenes, there's way more important shit than shit that was said in the past. So, all right, man.
I agree with that.
Catch you later. We'll talk soon.
Out. Peace out, Nick Rekieta. Thank you, sir.
All right, so that is all of that. I'm going to hit some super chats now, and yeah, we will. Then I'm going to go out and blow up some fireworks. It looks like. Yeah. Sorry about the super chats real quick. Again, I'm just going to hit the ones that were in there. I only hit 5 at the beginning. So AJ Stone again, thank you. 10 gifted memberships. Appreciate you, my friend. Thank you. Fallen Hero, also thank you for the gifted membership. Appreciate you. Thank you very much too. Appreciate that. Okay, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for the membership. Welcome to Tugs Thugs. Appreciate that as well. It's Whitney. Thanks for the 2 there. Maybe mention first that Ralph was maybe on, again, I'll leave anything with the interview up to anyone else's interpretation. Again, you got to watch the interview. That's, they talked about sectors, right? This is not my sector. Like that's, the stuff that, like the internet blood sports, I don't know, whatever they call that now, that's not my sector. I was interested in the interview itself because this is the first interview. There have been discussions about the case that have come up. They come up with locals at first. There were little odds and ends. There was more that was added to that first stream. Specifically when that specific CPS document came out. You actually had 1 second there. I lost the chat for a second. I mean, you had, an hour plus live stream, but this was mentioned as the first interview that was going to be done about everything. He mentioned it on Locals. He said, yes, Ethan Ralph is the first interview that I'm going to do. I'm like, okay. So that's your first interview. It wasn't some random thing that came up with this to know too. That was your first scheduled interview, for whatever you take from it. I do think out of anything there, the thing that with the documents that came up yesterday, again, with all the CPS, the other items. Again, that stuff, with a few things that came up on Twitter, you have Rekieta trending again. He's trending earlier. I don't know if he's trending now because some of the Twitter, I hate to call them news organizations. They clip other news headlines that come out, they add them, they just do them in little bites. And the stuff that came out weeks ago, the allegation from the 9-year-old, that report, that ended up hitting at least one of them. And that ended up with hundreds of thousands of views on it. And it magnified everything that came up yesterday. So yes, Jay for Broly, thanks for 5. I couldn't watch more than a few minutes of that trash. Nick is way better than that. As always, I hope you and the brothers are doing well. Fireworks, yes, indeed. The kids actually, my 4-year-old, like we'll do sparklers. We've done them a few days now. We've actually, the fireworks will kick off around here. This neighborhood You know, all the neighbors again, everybody gets together and they have a heck of a show. Like they put on something you could travel and see less of a show that'll go on. Neighbors out here, I can hear them starting up a little bit, but they'll really get into it within about an hour or two. But as far as the kids, yeah, I mean, we do kid-related fireworks. You know, sparklers, whatever you would buy in the little kid packs, smoke bombs. You know, my 4-year-old daughter's really looking forward to that. My oldest daughter is not as interested in fireworks. Like she'll watch this show, but she's not as interested in shooting them. But my 4-year-old's really looking forward to it. Like she's been excited about it all night long. Colonel Kurtz, thanks for the 10 there. Great that the host decided to do heroin to make Rekieta feel better. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And also, Colonel Kurtz, thank you for the additional 5 there. What happens if the hosts OD on camera? It depends on the platform. Like you know, I know that's a joke, but I'm surprised we've actually never seen that. I've worried about that with some of the people that I've known. I'm worried that, you know, again, we had a discussion about interventions because there were a lot of people worried that we might actually have an answer to how that played out. You know, and that's a horrifying idea. I'm surprised. Maybe it's happened before. I don't know about that. But as far as I'm aware, you know, it's never happened before. But with people live streaming every facet of their lives, sooner or later it will happen. Team Rube, thanks for the 20. DHS is not an organization to mess with. Indeed. My ex called them on me for not engaging him in an argument. It was 6 months before they decided it was a hoax and not real. It's rough. And added to that, too, said, and thanks for the additional 5 there, I didn't have enough space to say it on the original, but he accused me of abusing the kids, which is not true. But it wrecked my life for a while. Yeah, I mean, the organization, unfortunately, the organization has to exist. They have to, because there are horrible human beings out there. And the way that they set up their reporting, I mean, they investigate all, you know, they have to investigate, especially the horrendous things. And that sucks for yourself with it. But yeah, I mean, they are not an organization I would play with. I actually would never mention them. Like, just honestly, like in that particular case like we were talking about with the guy, I personally would not mention them directly. I do think that some of the stuff, again, everything now, like people would laugh at, you know, oh, you were doing what in your life? You know, again, they can laugh at everything except there's the kid involvement. That's what gets people worked up. So I think answering some of that for sure. But like I said, I hate hearing about the other side of it too. Rock and Ruin, what's up, Rock and Ruin? Thanks for the 5 there. Happy 4th of July, everyone. Love y'all. Indeed. You know, indeed. Good seeing you, my friend, by the way. Thank you, brother. Bernice, thanks for 22 months. Hi, Tug. Happy 4th. Hope all is well. Almost 2 years. I know, almost. Time flies, man. Time flies for sure. Thank you, too. Appreciate you. Rock and Ruin also, thanks for the additional 5 there. Not everyone, love y'all. Happy 4th of July. Indeed. You know, I hope everybody has a good one. Take time out. Have fun with, if you don't have anyone in your life, just take time out to do something fun for yourself, too. You know, have a good time. Colonel Kurtz, thanks for the 5. I'm going to do a live stream on this and other stuff tonight at midnight Central, if anyone is interested. So you're talking about in about 4 hours. If you want, check out Colonel Kurtz. Colonel Kurtz has done some really good coverage on quite a few cases. So definitely check out the channel, subscribe, and check that out if you'd like to. Tracy, thanks for the 3 months there. I grew up in a small town, 5 known families. I was in trouble before I got home. Yeah, that happens too. You know, the town here has grown. I mean, there are good aspects and bad aspects of growing up anywhere. But like growing up around small town, again, I learned things like as a teenager, I could build a barn. I learned I learned about hard work. I learned to appreciate like this. I remember the people that said that streaming was the hardest thing you could ever do, the hardest job. And I was like, no, you're blessed. You're fortunate to have something like this where you can do it. Because the hardest work, you go out and, you throw hay or you cut crops. I mean, that's some hard work. But you learn a lot of things too, values from it. Ria Ra, what's up? Thank you for the 10 there. Appreciate that. We lived in a little village for 18 years. Everyone knew everyone's business. But when the snow cut the village off, Mark and a farmer managed to get out to the shops, bought supplies for the village. Yeah, that's everybody does know everybody's business. It can lead to drama. You can have all kinds of negatives that can come from that. But I hate, like, small town again. They get so much shit. I would not trade in living in a small town for anywhere else. And my grandparents, like, this is a place where my grandparents lived. My parents lived. I know. I know the people that run for office here. I know at least of them. I know what they represent and what they don't. If there's something that comes up, police, they, like if you actually need them, they get to know who you are. And also, on the other side of that, we were talking about like false allegations, like if something like a CPS was, weaponized against you, well, they know also you're not dealing with a place with 1 million, people that live there. You might actually be able to cut through the noise too if you do it correctly. So, Deanna, thank you for that $20 super sticker too. I saw that roll in. Thank you. Appreciate that for sure. Colonel Kurtz notes, thanks for the 5. Okay, I'll start my stream at 11:30, so not midnight, 11:30 Central tonight. Link is up on channel and on Twitter. Talking Rekieta, and much more. So again, if you want to check that out, check out Colonel Kurtz for sure. Props to you. Thank you. I appreciate you. John, thanks for the 5 there. Don't know about ODs, but a female news host on it. Side Live. Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying there about on air about 15 years ago. There's been people that have done stuff like that, that have Minecrafted live. There was a politician that did that way back when, before we even had the internet set up. So I believe there was a TikToker that Minecrafted themselves because of allegations too. They were apparently false allegations, and a TikToker decided to unfortunately do that. Horrible stuff. Horrible business. Mary, thanks for 15 months. Happy 4th of July. Y'all, be safe, responsible. Check your pets. Make sure they're safe. Yeah, indeed. And, it sounds like a war zone out here. Luckily, we don't have anybody that would be bothered by that really close. I know people get so mad about it when talking about it. Oh my God, how dare you? But if one of my neighbors was like a vet dealing with PTSD or something, I'd be careful about the way I handled things. I wouldn't want to put them through the horrific experience that they could cause. I don't know. So yeah, be careful out there too. Don't do stupid stuff. I've seen so many people do stupid things. I've seen people catch their heads on fire. I've seen some really crazy stuff. One time I saw, this is way back when people used a lot of hairspray, big hair. I saw a Roman candle end up, it was set up on a fence, and it tipped over and shot them in the hair. Their hair went up like I mean, that's just nuts. It was absolutely nuts. So you got to be careful out there, folks. And John, thank you again. Thank you for another 10 gifted memberships. I appreciate that. Well, I'm going to end here. I'm going to go set up our fireworks and, well, see what the kids want to do. And I'll go from there. Tomorrow, well, tomorrow I don't, unless some court document or something pops up, I don't expect to be talking about this. Again, court documents, they dropped on this yesterday. I don't want to cover internet rumor or any of that. Again, that stuff, that'll be a topic. Like again, if I'm going to talk about that stuff, I want an interview. I want to talk, like, I would talk with Rekieta about it himself. I wouldn't hide it, But the court documents, they are what they are. And at the beginning of this, I want to see that, the internet has its way of looking at something and making it better or worse than it is. And some of that stuff is awful. Some of the allegations are awful. Seeing what comes up, and again, covering specific interviews. But that's enough for tonight. Appreciate you folks. I'll see you.